We are gathered here today to probably talk about the most requested book for me to read on this channel. That is The Final Empire. Hi, my name is Michael Knipp, and I'm a very outspoken fan of Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive, but I've never read the predecessor to that series, and the series that most people say is a very good beginner adult fantasy series. That is Mistborn. In preparation for Rhythm of War, I have been trying to catch up on the Cosmere as best as I can, and now is the time for me to start Mistborn, and man, is it an awesome ride. Just in case you aren't familiar with the world of Mistborn, it is a world where there is a evil dictator ruling the entire world. It is an extremely divided class system, where the lower classes are kept as slaves and can be used however the rich people want to use them. But because it is a fantasy world, we are living in like a steampunky environment, and because it's steampunk, the magic revolves around metal. Let me start off real quick. If you've never heard of the difference between a hard magic system and a soft magic system, a hard magic system is clearly defined with clearly defined rules, and something you will notice about the Final Empire very quickly is that the magic system is sort of rammed down your throat in a way that may take you out of the story sometimes. Brandon constantly uses every opportunity and sometimes invents opportunities for him to further explain the magic system to you. So much so that I feel like even less experienced fantasy readers will kind of be sick of every single description of what metal is being burned at what times and what they are doing, because he will remind you what each metal does. It's a little much. But magic system aside, the plot of this story is one that Brandon himself has described as part heist plot and part My Fair Lady. I don't know what that means because I've never read My Fair Lady, but what I do know is that it is definitely a sort of heist plot. As different people with different skill sets, they all have a role to play in this massive scheme that they are using to try to make a bunch of money. As always, I think the plot is interesting, and I do think that the magic system and the world building are interesting, but what Brandon Sanderson always really does well, I think, is character work. Our primary point of view characters in this story are like a street urchin thief girl named Vin, and the leader of this thieves crew named Kelsier. At the beginning of this book, I feel like characters are all very stereotyped into certain roles, and frankly, steampunk can sometimes be a little bit kitschy and self-indulgent, but over time we find nuance within each of those characters as well as many of the side characters, and spending time and getting to know those characters once again is the drive of this story, with the world and the magic system as the backdrop. In contrast to something like the Stormlight Archive, where there's a lot of mystery to everything, in this series we are living in a world where magic is much more prevalent, and so we get to see a lot more uses of it. It feels very supernatural in a good way, and its unique magic system and the setting that it's in makes it feel not just like another one of those, magics and wizards. Like, it feels very unique. I feel like it does carve out a space for itself. I will admit that I merely thought the story was okay until around the halfway point when I really started to get invested in the characters as individuals, because up to that point I did think parts of it just sort of were following tropey roles and fitting, like basically a character is exposed to the magic system and then talks to every single member of a magic system who teaches them their piece of the magic, and it kind of feels like a video game or something where you're getting tutorials for everything. I wasn't super into it at that point, but once everything starts really coming together, I was on board all the way, and of course the book ends with a traditional Sanderlanche where all the different plot threads come together in a way that's super fun. Frankly, when I finished the book, I just wanted to dive right into book 2. I haven't got a chance to really do that yet, but that's how much I really enjoyed this one. But because the familiar nature of some of those tropes, and also because I feel like certain elements of the story don't land as well as I think they were intended to, if what I have said doesn't sound interesting to you so far, or you are not sure if you like Brandon Sanderson's level of detail in his magic and the way that he expounds upon his plots through the individual eyes of the character developments, like if you don't know that you're for sure about this, I could see how you may not like it. Me, however, I loved it. The action is fast-paced, and there's a lot of it, and sometimes it seems to hit you out of nowhere. I think it's well described. The enemies that are being fought and the situations that they're being put into are very high stakes, and the more you are shown how powerful the magic users in this world are, the more you realize that the opposition to them is even stronger, and I love that power ramp up as it goes, instead of making everyone feel too powerful or too weak, you get it revealed in ways where the tension stays very thick throughout. By the end of the book, I cared a lot about the politics in this world and what mysteries were left unanswered going into the series forward, while I also felt like this book had a satisfying conclusion and arc within itself. I always am looking for something like that in a series. I will say that this is one of those series that everyone recommends as a first adult fantasy, especially transitioning from YA fantasy, and I think a large reason for that recommendation is the fact that Vin, the female protagonist, is 16 years old at the beginning of the story. She does a lot of coming of age during this story, and because it's Brandon Sanderson's books, which are not grimdark, you're not going to be overwhelmed with a lot of extreme dark themes dug into explicitly, though the world that we are living in Luthadel and the outskirts of these cities is extremely dark and contains a lot of thematically dark elements, though Brandon is never super explicit about them. If you are looking for a way to get into adult fantasy, that may be why that recommendation makes sense. In comparison to something like the Stormlight Archive, this one moves a lot faster, though for me it doesn't hit quite the highs of The Way of Kings in this book, though The Way of Kings had an extra 300 pages on it. And for some people, that's a huge no-no. So yeah, I think that sums it up. If this sounds like something you want to read, you should definitely do it. If you're on the fence, I hope that I helped explain some of this stuff to you. I have fantasy-loving friends that both love and don't care so much for this book. I personally am in the camp of, yeah, I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. By the end, I was just full on into it, and I can't wait to continue the series. But I also understand there's a lot of elements that may fall flat for other people. For those of you that haven't read this story before, I think this is going to be the end of the video, because I do want to talk about some spoilers after I get through this. But if you liked this video, please leave a thumbs up on it. Remember to leave a comment down below. If you want to see more videos from me, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I love having conversations with you, and if you'd like to have more conversations with me, there is a link down below to my Discord channel, which is free for everyone to join. We have a lot of fun over there. Right now, we're doing a buddy read for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. If you would like to support the channel financially, there's also a Patreon link down below, and if you want this shirt, that link is down below. That's new. But now, let's talk about spoilers for The Final Empire. First of all, I don't like when books have something final in the title. The Final Empire as the beginning of a series, I don't like that titling. The Last Wish in the Witcher series is like that. I don't put last or final in the first book of your series. It's confusing as crap. What I said at the beginning of this was true. Steampunk can be sort of cute, and so I was a little bit cautious going into it, along with like this is one of the series that has been hyped the most for me, so I was trying to balance my expectations. And at the beginning, it was like, okay, I know what this is. This is fine. This is fun. Brandon Sanderson does a good job, but this isn't blowing my mind. But the more I got to fall in love with Kelsier, the more I was invested, because Kelsier, while he started out as just kind of the super talented, rich, smarmy Iron Man character, you got to know the depth and why he is the way that he is. And ultimately, when he makes that final sacrifice, it just, I mean, I had it spoiled for me. I knew that Kelsier was going to die. I couldn't remember if it was this book or later. When he did die, it was still shocking to me because it's just so brutal. He stands up, he's like, I'm gonna make my stand, I'm gonna kill the Lord Ruler, this is my shot. And then he gets slapped in the face so hard, it like shreds half his face, and then speared, and it's over. And it's like, holy crap. And they had kind of been building up, and there's a lot of foreshadowing that it was going to lead to this revolution. He becomes a Messiah-like character. They even do a very overt reference to that, where they fake that he was resurrected, and that was interesting, and obviously an homage to another historical event. But Kelsier's drive and like his goals for this really drive the whole series forward. Vin is also a super interesting character, and I like the way that she grows out of her shell. The romance for me is where I am really conflicted, because when it started, I thought it was really fun and interesting and cute, but due to the nature of the story, obviously it's a 700-page book, it's not short, it did feel rushed at times. I enjoy the dynamic that we're going to have going into this next one, where we have 2 characters that are established as being in a relationship, and one of them is going to be in political power, and the other one is Vin, and she is coming from where she came from. I liked the setup, and I liked the ball sort of scenarios where that kind of politicking was happening. I just felt that I would have enjoyed more experiences with Vin talking to Eland or at least implying that that happened more. I love the little threads of mystery we have with the other types of magic system, and we see Sazed, and you start to understand what was going on with the Lord Ruler's journal before the characters do. I was still surprised at the end when they did the plot twist in some ways, but also in other ways, you could see part of it coming with the two different magic systems sort of working together. We obviously have hints that Vin will probably also be able to use that memory type metal magic system. I feel like that's where we're going next. I could be proven wrong, and that would be hilarious. Getting to know the other members of the crew was also fun, and I hope that we get to continue to do that throughout the rest of the series. I will say the part of the plot where things go bad and they lose that significant part of the army, I was straight up like, well, frick, what are they going to do? I thought that when Kelsier lost his brother, I thought that was permanent, so I guess you have a resurrection trope here. Wasn't my favorite thing, but I also didn't hate it the way I sometimes do. Though the idea of the Inquisitors is crazy, creepy, and awesome. I love the Inquisitors. I love the Miss Wraith / Condra, whatever that is. I want more mystery and weird stuff like that, because that stuff is cool. I want more weird creatures in our magical fantasy. I'm sort of missing that. Now that I'm branching out of some of the D&D realm where you have to have a full-on monster manual full of weird creatures that I have to fight, like, I want some more of that in the modern fantasy with the character development we have in modern fantasy. Obviously, we got our Hoyd reference there with him being an informant. He clearly seemed to know more of what was going on that was implied, which makes sense. I'm curious if he's going to be in future books. I have heard from multiple places that there is a lot of greater Cosmere stuff related to this series, and I need to know. I also feel like Mistborn, more so than the other series, has this, like, I don't know, this cosmological unknown that's really making me interested in, and that's something that the Cosmere doesn't always do. Like, that Stormlight Archive doesn't always do. Like, Stormlight Archive, I love it. I love everything about it. I love the characters. I love the magic system. I love the reveals that we're getting in that series. At the same time, the weird, mysterious, eerie nature of some of the elements in Mistborn is like really tugging at my brain strings, and so I do want to get into that stuff. I don't want it to, I don't know, I don't want it to be overly explained. I know that Brandon Sanderson loves to do hard magic all the time, but I also love some mystery and magic in my magic that makes it feel like magic, and I'm really hoping that I get some more of that out of Mistborn, but we will see. I know the next book in the series is controversial. I know a lot of friends that love it and it's their favorite. I know a lot of friends that hate it, so we're gonna find out where I fall in that line. What are your thoughts if you've read the series before? Leave down below. Make sure to leave some space so you mark your spoilers. But what were your favorite parts of book 1 of Mistborn? How do you feel about most people just calling the first Mistborn book Mistborn? I prefer that because I think the Final Empire is a bad title. Do you strongly disagree with anything that I said here? How did you feel about the relationship between Vin and Eland? I want to discuss this book with you. I want to read more of this series. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Can't wait to talk to you more in my Discord. I hope you are all having a great week. I love you. Bye.
No one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep. No one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired. Sleep. No one ever get enough. Always looking out tired. Sleep. No one ever get enough. If I don't show up, I might get fired.